Good morning. Like and subscribe if you agree with the subject matter and if you feel that it's worth passing along. I'm going to begin by giving you the definition of capitalism. An economic system based on predominantly private individual or corporate investment. Remember the word investment in and ownership. Remember the word ownership of the means of production, distribution, and exchange. The means of production would be resources and companies. Distribution would be the stores that sell the products, and the exchange of goods and wealth. Exchange of goods and wealth. Now let me read that real quickly. An economic system based on predominantly private individual or corporate investment in and ownership of the means of production, distribution, and exchange of goods and wealth. The first word that I want you to understand about capitalism is ownership. Ownership of the means of production, distribution, and exchange of good and wealth. Ownership of the means of production. You are the means of production. And what capitalism means is that they own you. They own you because you are a means of production. How do they own you? They own you with investment. They own you with investment. Therefore, if you do not have the money to invest in the ownership of people, you cannot be a capitalist unless you can borrow, you save the money up, or you borrow it from a bank. And if you borrow it from a bank, then the bank owns you because a bank is an individual or a corporation that invests in you, and they invest in you based upon the interest that you can pay them on the money they lent you. With this being said, capitalism makes you an automatic slave because it gives the corporations ownership. Another key word is an ownership of the means of production, distribution, and exchange of goods and wealth. Ownership of the wealth. This is why in a capitalist society, you need unions to balance the ownership of wealth. Union gives you control of your labor. Unions give you control of your labor and allows corporations and private individuals not to what? Not to own you. This is why individuals that own TV stations, radio stations, have convinced you that unions are bad. If they can't convince you that unions are bad, then they can't own you. Then they can't own you because they take away your balance. They take away your balance. See, unions give you a certain amount of control over your labor. When a corporation invests money into or a private individual invests money into a company, they want to do what? they want to keep the cost down. And the biggest cost is going to be your labor. That's why the minimum wage has not been raised. And that's why you have billionaires. Because they control the government through campaign finance, and they tell our politicians what to do so that they can increase their profits. You see, capitalism is about profit maximization. It is about profit maximization. They want to keep your pay down, and that raises their dividends up. So understand this. The key word in capitalism is ownership. They own everything. They own production, which is you. They own distribution. You distribute. And they own the exchange of goods. And in the end run, the key word, they own the wealth. They own the wealth. That's everything. That's when you add the production, distribution, exchange of goods, it equals wealth. And they own that. So you may call yourself, the only difference between being a worker today and a slave yesterday is that slaves were provided the minimal amount of pay for their labor. Whereas here, through the government and the minimum wage, they can control you by keeping the minimum wage down. So you may think that you're making this nice amount of money, but you're not a billionaire. We talk about what athletes make. Oh, this athlete is making too much money. This athlete is making too much money. But nobody talks about what the owners are making. And they have longevity. An athlete, depending on what sport he's in, he has a lifespan where he can only play that sport for so long. And then if he doesn't save and manage his money properly, he'll go broke. And we've known many athletes to go broke, black or white. And we also know that the owners of these sports teams is usually 55-45 with the owners, or either 50-50 with the owners getting 50%. And the players that come and go, they have to split 50% between, I don't know, depending on how many people are on the team. And then the owner has longevity. And then they pay politicians so that they don't have to pay taxes. Now, let's examine communism. A scheme of equalizing the social conditions of life, specifically a scheme which contemplates the abolition of inequalities in the possession of property, as by distributing all wealth equally to all, or by holding all wealth in common for the equal use and advantage of all. But the problem with communism is that it is a form of control in which not only do a certain group of people control the means of production and wealth, they also tell you what you can and cannot do and how to live your life. And although it is supposed to be a classless society, the people at the top always find a way to give themselves more than the people at the bottom, and they end up creating a class society. And when people are in control, They don't want to give up control. That's the problem with communism. Once people get in control, they don't want to give up control. They want to control everything. They want to do what's being done in North Korea, pass it on to their kids. But it's supposed to be an equal distribution, but it's not. It's just another form of control that takes individual freedoms away. It takes individual freedoms away. And we've seen that where state-ran propaganda. See, you can't have a democracy in a communist system. You can't have a democracy because you lose your freedom of choice in a communist society. And the reality is, no one wants to be told what to do, how to do it, when to do it, and everything else. There are too many other things that comes with a communist society because it takes away your freedom of thought and freedom of expression. Now, understand this. In communism, you own nothing. In communism, you own nothing, and the state owns everything. Now, let's look at socialism. Socialism, a theory or system of social reform which contemplates a complete reconstruction of society with a more just and equitable distribution of property and labor. Key words being property and labor. So what does this mean? It means that in a socialist society, you can own property, which means it is more democratic and you have more control over your labor. But see, socialism, like any form of government, there's going to be improvisions. You're going to have to make it improvised to work for the common good. In a socialist society, those things that are necessary for human survival should be owned, managed, and ran by the state. Businesses like food production, amusement parks, furniture stores, appliance stores, things like this should be privately owned. But the water system, water should be ran and maintained by the state. All utilities should be ran and maintained by the state. Hospitals should be ran and maintained by the state. Why? Because those things that are necessary for survival should not make people slaves of the system. Water should be maintained, kept clean, protected by the government for the betterment of humanity. For all individuals should have a right to clean water. All individuals should have a right to clean air. All individuals should have a right to electricity and gas to run their homes. And all individuals should have a right to education and health care. Those are rights. Those are needs. Anything that is of need should be provided by the state. And people should not be held prisoner. People should not be held prisoner to those things that are a necessity to life. Now, a car dealership, privately owned, no problem. Uh, TV, but TV stations, no. Those should be owned by the state. So that, and even then we have to be careful. Because you can't have the state, well, even like this. Well, a TV station, it can be state owned, it can be government owned, but it cannot lie to the people. It cannot lie to the people. And that's what we have now with privately owned TV stations like Fox and Newsmax. They lied. They are both being, Fox has been lied, had to pay over almost $1 billion for the lies they told. But the laws were not changed to stop them from lying. So what happened? And if they tell the lie at the right time, Trump would be president, and then he would allow them to continue to lie. And right now, you got Newsmax being sued because they want to lie for the purpose of making money. In a capitalist society, money is God. You can say you fear God, but the reality of the situation is you fear losing money more, because under a capitalist society creates a dog-eat-dog world. In a capitalist society, and I'm gonna tell you the truth, America's a capitalist society, but how did we get to be a capitalist society? Killed all the Native Americans and took their land and gave it to people privately, allowed people to own slaves, free labor, privately, and then they created generational wealth. And then eventually they bought out our democracy, and what we have now is pretty much pure capitalism, where laws have been made which allow people to steal. Laws have been made to allow people to be injured by corporations who cut corners, and you can't sue those corporations because they can say, well, you should have known. So I am relieving myself of responsibility. Corporations can relieve themselves of responsibilities to you. We have to pay attention to what's going on. But I want to say something about this. Think about the word social. When you think about the word socialism, think about the word social worker, because that's what Yashuwah, Jesus, was, a social worker. He went around helping people. And there's nothing wrong with private ownership of certain businesses. But those things that are a necessity to human life should not be owned by anyone, because first of all, the people who own these hospitals, they did not create brain surgery, heart surgery. They did not create blood plasma. They did not create the machines that are used in hospital. All these things were created by humanity. They were created by humanity, and they were stolen with patents. Patents are a way of stealing from humanity. Patents do nothing but steal from humanity, steal the work and the labor of other people for private wealth. For private wealth. That's all patents do. And they should be wiped out. Bill Gates did not he did not invent the computer, internet, or anything else. He just used, black people invented the internet. He just patented and now he's able to steal it. Same way with the billionaires of Amazon. Every billionaire in the world that invests in a corporation is stealing money. It's basically stealing money. I gave you the definitions, and you can figure it out for yourself. But no system of government is pure, which means that there's no such thing as pure communism, total communism. There's no such thing as pure socialism. No such thing as pure anything, because the more pure a thing becomes, the more detrimental it becomes to the person. So there has to be improvisions in everything we do. You have to improvise and shape things to make it work for society. And when we shape socialism, we get Social Security, so that people don't have to work their whole lives. But what do the rich want people to do? They want people to keep work, and drop dead, so that they can steal the money. They want to privatize socialism. I mean, they want to privatize Social Security. And if they privatize Social Security, you know what's going to happen. The same thing with the minimum wage. They're going to try to hold it down so that they can make money off of it. Hey, and it was Yashuwah, Jesus, who said, a rich man has as much chance of getting into heaven as a camel passing through the eye of a needle. And when we talk about communism, God has given us free will to think and make decisions on our own. And the last thing we want is a group of people trying to control and tell us what's best for us. We need a socialist system that allows for ownership of certain industries, but those industries must have labor unions to protect the workers from being exploited and owned. Workers have to have control over their labor. If workers do not have control over their labor, they may as well be minimum wage slaves, because that's what it comes down to. And everything that, let's go back into history and understand one thing. Corporations had children working. Think about what the unions, before you knock the unions, think about what the unions gave us and understand this. Bill Gates and all these other rich billionaires did not give us those things, but they want to act as if they gave us those things that we took. The United States did not end slavery. Black people fought to end slavery. And we all, through people like Walter Reuther, we fought to be paid fair wages. And right now, there is a war. There's always been a war between the haves and the have-nots. And the have, and right now in the United States, it's increasing. The income gap is increasing. And it's not by accident. People think. With that, like and subscribe. Have a great day. God bless us all, and God's will shall be done.